If you have a laptop, you probably heard of a Trojan horse, a kind of malware that disguises itself as a legitimate program. But have you ever wondered where that comes from?
No.
Okay, I'll tell you anyway. A long time ago, specifically 3,119 years ago, a war between Greece and Troy had been raging, with Greece failing to ever make a dent in the defense of the Trojans. The reason the Greeks and the Trojans were fighting to begin with is because the goddesses Hera, Athena, and Aphrodite had a quarrel over who was the most beautiful. Because of this dispute, Helen, the wife of Menelaus, was abducted by Trojan prince Paris. This caused Menelaus to act out and call on the gods to help save his future wife.
After a decade of brutal fighting, the Greeks failed to conquer Troy. Troy still stood tall, towering with its impenetrable walls, with the committed army of King Priam. The Greeks, however, had been led by great kings like Odysseus, Achilles, and Ajax, who had fought fiercely. However, they were nowhere close to being victorious.
The Greeks now had a question. How could they defeat such a strong opponent? When it seemed that all hope was lost, the legendary Odysseus aimed to devise a plan that would hopefully give Greece the upper hand in the war.
After a long time, filled with countless failed attempts at penetrating the Trojan defense, Odysseus formed a plan that incorporated not only the strength of Greece's soldiers, but also deception. He formed a gigantic wooden horse that hollowed out in the interior to fit some of Greece's best men. And so Greece built a wooden sculpture meant to appear as a sacred offering to please the gods, particularly Poseidon, the god of the sea, in hopes that they would have his approval.
Obviously, the creation of the Trojan horse took a period of assiduous planning and work. It stood tall, in fact, it stood several stories tall, and had intricate carvings and engravings, hiding in the facade that it was a deadly trap behind the innocence and artistry of the wooden sculpture. In order to trick them, the Greeks gave the horse to the Trojans to make it seem like a peace offering as they left their siege in Troy.
The Greeks sailed away after this, and the Trojan army watched from inside, happy to win. But a Trojan priest named Laocoon was quite suspicious of the Greeks' intentions. He had been wary of the Greeks even before the war started, and proclaimed, "I fear the Greeks, even when they bring gifts." He threw a spear at the horse, but the Trojans disregarded his warnings. The Trojans, who were blinded by their victory, brought the horse inside the city to celebrate their victory. They celebrated their victory with feasts and games while the horse was dragged through the streets of the city. However, the Greek fleet returned back to the coast of Troy at night, where they waited patiently to strike.
Hidden inside the wooden horse were a dozen elite soldiers, including Odysseus, who had devised the plan. For hours, these soldiers had been inside of the horse, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. That very same night, as the Trojans celebrated their victory, Odysseus and his warriors emerged from the horse. Their escape was thoroughly calculated as not to awake the Trojan soldiers. As they emerged from the horse's belly, they walked quietly through the dark streets and reached the gates of Troy.
Now with the Greek army fully mobilized inside of Troy, there was bound to be destruction galore in the city. The Trojans, who let their guard down following their victory, were attacked swiftly and without mercy. The deceptive tactics from the Greeks, led by Odysseus and Neoptolemus, Achilles' son, and other heroes, led to a huge slaughter of the Trojans.
A notable moment of the war was when the ruler of Troy, King Priam, was assassinated in the royal palace by one of the Neoptolemus. The rest of the royal family were either taken as prisoners or killed.
The Greeks rampaged through the city of Troy that had stood for many centuries. Troy fell victim to the deceptive tactics of the Greeks and was reduced to ashes. The Greeks looted the city and then scorched it to the ground. The Trojan horse now served as the single reminder of the Greeks' deceptive and cunning tactics.
The fall of Troy was both a proud victory for the Greeks and a huge tragedy for the Trojans. Although the Greeks devised a plan that ended in a proud victory for them, their leader, Odysseus, had his own trials to worry about when he returned home in Ithaca. As for the Trojans, their naiveness in believing this symbol of peace ended in their downfall. Their temerity, combined with their celebrations and victory, led them to ignore any warnings to prepare before getting attacked.